Nick Smith. Nick? Yolk asked, seeing the shock on my face. I tried to answer him but couldn't come up with the words. Several feelings swelled up within me all at once, completely overwhelming me. Surprise was chief among them, but also confusion and disappointment. My eyes darted along the characters over and over, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "What's wrong?" Gally asked. "Do you know what it says?" No, I managed to say. "But, this doesn't make any sense." "What do you mean?" Larry asked. The letters. I know these letters. I grew up writing them over and over again, but they aren't forming words. It's just a bunch of gibberish. The tablet looked like a mosh pit of English letters. Even the lesser-used letters like Z and X were in the fray. For a moment, I thought it could be a language that uses similar letters, but there weren't any diacritical marks. Just plain old English letters grouped together in ways that didn't make any recognizable words. "Can I see the rest of the tablets?" I asked. Larry gave the tablets to me and I began scouring them. The letters were jumbled all to hell. Not a single word made sense. There were also hyphens and semicolons spread throughout, but no commas or periods. A sense of frustration began to rise within me. "It could be encrypted," Ten said. "Maybe. But why?" I asked. I hadn't been expecting an answer from Ten, but I was still disappointed when it remained silent. There isn't any need to write in code when nobody else can read the language you're writing. "Hold on. Wait," I said excitedly. "This could be written in some kind of code." "I had thought as much when you said it was gibberish," Larry said. "But while knowing that might be helpful, you seem more excited than is to be expected of this revelation. It's a code using the English alphabet. The only reason to write in code is to make sure that others don't understand what you're writing," I explained. "Meaning that there were other people who knew the English alphabet, and possibly English as well. English is a human language, which means—" I trailed off for dramatic effect, and everyone stared at me for a moment. "There were other humans here?" Mako asked. "Exactly," I grinned. "But Nick," Yolk said gently, "we already knew that there were other humans. Remember the Delver's dungeon? Yeah, but that was different. I was asleep, and the other human was insane. But this is evidence that humans were actively communicating with each other and trying to keep secrets from one another. Why else would they bother with a code?" "There are several disturbing implications that go along with that hypothesis, though," Larry said. "First and foremost, it implies that humans were active members of the cult of Malos. If that were true, I feel that someone would have taken note. There's also the fact that the cult disappeared a long time ago," Yolk added. "Even if the humans had been a part of the cult and didn't disappear along with the rest of the cult, they would be long dead by now, right?" Yolk and Larry seemed to be trying to temper my excitement, but every point they made just caused it to grow. "That's actually a really good point," I said. "As I understand it, the cult was pretty secretive. What if humans were the leaders of the cult? That would explain why nobody knew about them. And what they were trying to find a way back home? What if the reason that they disappeared is because they succeeded?" I wasn't fully sold on that idea, though. King Isinarath had told us that he'd worked to exterminate the cult, and he'd probably have run into a human or two in the process, unless the leadership had been elsewhere, or he hadn't been paying attention. "I don't like that theory," Nash said, crossing his arms. "The cult abducted and experimented on people. I'm willing to do a lot of things to help you get home, but I draw the line at harming innocents." "I wouldn't hurt innocent people to get home, Nash. But we shouldn't have to, right? What if they wrote down how to get home? What if it's written right here?" I pointed at the stone tablet for emphasis. "Well, you still need to be able to read the fucking thing," Rebus said. "What are we going to do about that? Were there any other writings like this?" I asked Larry. "Potentially," he answered. "There were several other sets of notes, but none that were in legible condition." "Damn," I muttered. "Why do you ask?" Rebus asked. "Because ciphers have keys. I hoped someone had written the key somewhere. The moment the words left my mouth, I realized how stupid it would be for someone to just leave something like that lying around. I blame video games. In a video game, the key would be hinted at on a mural within the dungeon or explained in a note next to a dead body. But that's because the people who are making the cipher within a game want you to crack it. Whoever wrote this probably had the opposite intention. Well, I don't know much about codes or secret messages or anything like that. Does anyone know anybody who would be able to help?" Gally asked the group. A lot of shrugging and head-shaking followed. Larry and Yolk didn't reply, looking deep in thought. Olmyra patted my brother on the shoulder, bringing him back to reality. Oh yes, my apologies, he said. I do know a few scholars who enjoy complex puzzles, but I'm afraid this is likely beyond their capabilities. How come? I asked. Well, solving a code is one thing. Solving a code in a language that you are unfamiliar with and have little to no reference for is another thing entirely. It might be possible, but it would be extremely difficult and would likely take a lifetime. The words of the God thing echoed in my mind. I doubt this is what it meant when it said time isn't a concern. Plus, it wouldn't exactly be entertaining to watch me wait around until someone finally solved this damn code. I stared at the tablet, trying to will the words into existence. Wait, what about you, Ten? I thought to the machine in my brain. I'm afraid that I'm unable to assist you with this task, Ten replied. Why not? I have a fairly sophisticated processor and cooling system, but the processing power I would have to dedicate to this task would be intensive and would come with consequences. Namely heat. So you could crack this cipher, but it would cook my brain in the process? Not all of it, just some very important parts of it. Are we suddenly unable to seek help from the fair folk? Mako asked. Would they know about this? I replied. Possibly, Larry said. The fair folk are an old and wise race of beings. While our ways are as alien to them as their ways are to us, they still watch, and some of them learn. So yes, it's entirely possible that a knowledgeable Fae would be able to shine light on this predicament. So we still have to go talk to the Fae, then. Memories of a certain anatomically named Archfey played through my mind, and I had to resist the urge to shudder. Tits probably wouldn't be here, though, right? I'll be fine as long as Yulk remembers to keep me updated, Omira said, mistaking my concerned expression. I'll remember to write, Yulk chuckled. He won't forget, Nash said. I won't let him. We gonna go see the spooky guys? Simith asked. I should bring knife, yes? No, Larry replied. We've lost many, Simith. We must rebuild, and so I want you to go to the kobold caves and find us some reinforcements. More kobolds? Indeed. All of them? Well, no. Just those that want to. What if all want to? That's too many. No, we only want a dozen or so. Dozen? 2 groups of 7 should do fine, Larry chuckled. You can do that, right? Yeah. Am I in one of the groups? No. Okay, so 2 sets of 7 plus me, Simith hopped up and down excitedly. Go now! Yes. For the Lord, the kobold shouted as he ran out of the room. We stood silently as we listened to his footsteps patter down the entrance hallway. Once they faded, Mako turned to the Lich. He'll be okay, right? He asked. Yes, Larry said. He's one of the smarter kobolds. Plus, he didn't take a weapon with him, so he'll be extra cautious. I'd think not taking a weapon would put him more at risk, Hino chimed in. Only if something is actively hunting him. But kobolds tend to get far more confident when they are armed, and this confidence is often misplaced. He'll be safer without a blade. Those letters look odd, Ithrima said from over my shoulder, making me jump a little. Really? Let me see, Rebus said. Everyone except Larry gathered around to have a look, and I lowered the tablets so that they could see them better. Nash and I made eye contact once he looked up from the tablet, and I grinned. Hey, Nash, maybe you'll be able— Shut up, he interrupted with a growl before I could finish the joke. Nash crossed his arms and tried to look intimidating as Yulk and I began to laugh. Everyone else looked confused, but took one look at Nash and decided they didn't want in on the joke. Once Yulk and I had our fill of laughter, Rebus pointed at the tablet. That looks like an arrowhead, he said. Or maybe a spear tip. That's an A, I explained. It's the first letter of the English alphabet. Very stabby-looking letter. Oh, we have that one. He pointed again. An EMV. We call that an X. It's the third to last letter. Your alphabet has a specific order to it? Hino asked. Why? I opened my mouth to answer, but found myself at a loss. The hesitation I felt turned into a small existential crisis, as it dawned on me that I can't think of any real reason the alphabet is in that order. Maybe it's historical? Or— I think it's because it's easier to teach it if it is in a certain order, I said. There's a song and everything. I sang the alphabet song for them, and my demonstration left everyone speechless for a bit. Humans have singing scholars? Ithrima asked. Huh? Oh, I guess. Technically, those scholars are usually children, though, I replied. Kids love to sing, and teaching them the alphabet song helps them remember the alphabet, or the names of the letters at least. More questions about public education followed, and I answered them to the best of my abilities. Everyone seemed impressed, except Yulk and Nash. They'd heard it all before. "Well, that would certainly be better for the little ankle-biters than hawking goods in the street," Rebus said. "Or the mines," Mako added. "Nah, kids long for the mines." "They most certainly do not," Ithrima argued. I almost agreed with her, but decided to keep quiet once I remembered how popular a certain video game was back home. Even I loved it, but grew out of it when I became a teenager. Maybe kids really do long for the mines. The conversation about public schooling continued for some time, culminating with Yulk and Ithrima discussing how such a system could be implemented. I answered a few more questions, but had difficulty pulling my attention from the tablets in my hands. Larry noticed my distraction and interrupted the conversation. "While this exploration of another world's educational systems is illuminating, I do believe we should see the Fae sooner rather than later," he said. "If we leave now, you may make it back to town before nightfall." "That's a good point," Gally said. "All right, let's get going." After a chorus of agreements, we began to make our way out of the dungeon. Larry disintegrated the fallen kobolds as we passed, silently praying for them. We all bowed our heads in respect as well. Finally, we left the dungeon. Fresh air flushed the stench of death from my nose, and I inhaled deeply. Unfortunately, the smell had gotten into my clothes, so I gagged. That got a few laughs, but those quickly died out once everyone realized that they also stank. "This is where we part ways," Olmyra smiled. "I hope to see you all again someday." "We will look you up the next time we're in Bolasir," Nash said. "And I'll make sure Yulk keeps you updated." "I won't need a reminder," Yulk added. "I hope you have a safe journey." "You too." With a wave, Olmyra began heading back to town. "The terrain can be treacherous," Larry said. "Watch your step or you may injure your ankles." The Lich then left the trail, and the rest of us followed after him into the forest. Chapter 69.5 Master Vampire Kirain Yith Adventurer Level N.A. Drow, Master Vampire, Balushinian. A miserable failure, my mind whispered. The void had once again enveloped me, but this time there was a sense of hostility to it that I found unnerving. It made me feel as if I were prey for a hungry and angry beast. "Why am I here?" I demanded, forcing my unease aside. "What happened?" "You were defeated. Cast down by a novice better described as a child than an adult. I had such high hopes for you, and you have thoroughly disappointed me. So this is the afterlife." "No. You've managed to survive by the skin of your teeth. Or rather, the skin behind your teeth." Tiresome riddles. I found myself struggling to make sense of what the higher being was saying. Then my eyes saw the fight play out before me. The creature had burned me severely, and I had ripped off my tongue and cast it aside. I felt it all again, but knew it wasn't real. This was the higher being explaining what it meant. As long as any of my organs survive the flames, I can regenerate. After our fight, the intruders and the Lich had burned my arm, my body, and even the flesh I had torn off. But they had missed my tongue laying next to the throne. Actually, so had I. "So what do you want from me now?" I asked. "Nothing. You did your best and failed. I can try again." "You will fail again." "No, this time I will be better prepared. I now know what that thing is capable of. I can take precautions. I can kill it." The hostility of the void increased, burning my flesh with its intensity. No, not my flesh, my essence. Pain, more intense than any I had ever felt before, coursed throughout my very being. I tried to scream but had no mouth to do so. I tried to beg but the words wouldn't form. Couldn't form. Suddenly it stopped. "Perhaps it may be amusing to see you try again," the voice taunted me. "So you'll let me go?" I asked. "I hadn't planned on holding you here, just tormenting you until you met your grisly end. Instead, I will discuss this with the others. If they agree, I will intercede and save you from what's to come. If not, we'll leave you to your fate. And what am I to do in the meantime? You will wait." High Chief Ullermac. My gaze washed over the former battlefield with satisfaction. Drow corpses and weapons were scattered everywhere, with nary an injured dwarf, elf, or orc in sight. We'd definitely taken some casualties, but we cleaned up after ourselves nicely. Our enemy, on the other hand, didn't get the chance to. A job well done, if I say so myself. I even got to fight a bit. Of course, fighting on Narsback isn't exactly my favorite kind of brawl, but beggars can't be choosers. King Lofin's finest had retreated into the city and were already on the walls taking poorly aimed potshots at us. The walls were imposingly large, but had definitely seen better days. probably built by the vampires when they held the city, and not at all maintained by the inbred bastard king or his forefathers. The steady sound of Nar's hooves galloping behind me brought me out of my contemplations. My Nars, a warrior bred for size and strength, huffed at the inconvenience of my weight shifting as I turned to get a look. I patted the poor beast on the head while Blagroth's Nars approached us. "Just got word that Emperor Jack has made it back home safely, sir," Blagroth reported. Once Jack, Makiv, and I had finished our strategy meeting, the Dwarven Emperor had decided to leave the rest of the fight in the hands of his top general. Then he went home, leaving the vast majority of the army he'd brought along with him in my care. Things had moved pretty quickly after that. Messengers had been sent out to all the great chiefs declaring war on the Night Kingdom, and not a single protest was sent in reply. As a matter of fact, many of the great chiefs sent their best mare to join me. That, combined with the surprising competency of Jack's general, made things a whole lot easier than they otherwise would have been. General Jakiv, who also happened to be Jack's youngest cousin, didn't get to where he is from nepotism. Or maybe he did, but he's still a damn fine strategist as well as a natural leader. Were it not for Jock II, Jakiv would likely be a strong candidate for the throne. Plus, he and General Makiv were getting along famously. All of this had made the campaign into the Night Kingdom, well, for lack of a better word, fun. Leading a war band against an incompetent foe with competent allies, what could be more elating for an orc such as I? Unfortunately, it had only taken us a week to push the Drow forces back to their capital. Not going to be long until I'm back in the office. Good to hear. How are the preparations going? I asked. The boulder tossers are nearly finished, and we've got some decent boulders to chuck, sir. Jakiv and Makiv are ready for the assault when we are. Blagroth cracked his neck. By the way, sir, are they related? Jakiv and Makiv? Not that I know of. Why? No real reason. Their names sound similar as all. I stared at the brawny young infantryman for a moment, trying to judge whether he was serious or not. No sly winks or hidden smiles gave it away. One's an elf and the other is a dwarf, I said, trying not to sound condescending. Yeah, but elves and dwarves can have babies. And them babies usually look like one or the other, so you can't really tell. I've seen a dwarf and elf be brothers from the same parents, sir. Okay, but one is cousin to the Emperor of Calcuti, and the other is a high-ranking general in the army of Bolasir, I argued. That's a lot of distance apart, and they're leading different armies. But Bolasir and Calcuti are on friendly terms, so it wouldn't be unheard of for a powerful family to have positions of power in both nations, sir. Not only was he serious, but he now had me doubting Jakiv's and Makiv's familial origins. What I had initially believed to be an ignorant assumption turned out to be a well-thought-out question that I don't have a good answer for. I can see why High Chief Olmag lent him to me. I'll have to give the city of Havros a tax cut as way of thanks. Well, all I know is that they aren't related, I said with a shrug. At least not closely. Changing the subject, I need you to spread the word. Once the boulder tossers are ready and loaded, they're going to fire 3 volleys, which should open up the walls. Nobody is to charge until the 3rd volley is in the air. Right, or else we'll be squashing our own. Blagroth nodded sagely. What do we do if 3 volleys isn't enough to bring down a good enough portion of the wall? It should. These walls aren't exactly the best on the continent, I chuckled. But, yeah, if the walls somehow stand up to the volleys or if we miss, just call a retreat. So, charge once the 3rd volley is in the air. If the wall doesn't fall, retreat. Easy, right? Sounds like a plan, sir. Blagroth turned his Nars and rode off. My own was absent-mindedly picking at the grass. He huffed another complaint as I picked up the reins and steered him toward my encampment. Despite his hesitancy and my weight, we made good time getting back. I sighed internally as my tent came into view. One of the biggest and gaudiest damn pieces of fabric I've ever seen rose above all of the others surrounding it, telling everyone who had eyes exactly where the High Chief sleeps at night. Even the tents of the great chiefs who managed to catch up to us were tiny in comparison. If the Drow were a more capable foe, it would be fucking stupid to show them exactly where to strike. Thankfully, they don't stand a chance of getting this far behind our lines. The dour mood brought on by the sight of my tent disappeared when I saw who was hanging out with the guards surrounding it. Olmag! Glad you decided to join us! I shouted and waved. Gracefully, I slid off my Nars, the ground shuddering slightly as I landed. It could be my imagination, but I swear the Nars sighed in relief before it trotted off to join the others at the stable. I strode up to Olmag and grasped his outstretched forearm. Wouldn't miss it for my wedding, High Chief, he laughed. How's Blagroth? Has he been making himself useful? He has. All compliments, no complaints. He's been acting as my second in command and doing a damn good job of it. Didn't catch his rank, though. Oh, that's because we don't really do ranks in Havros. You're either a chief or you aren't. Good to hear that he's been taking initiative, though. What happened to your original second in command? Well, I left Rezun handling administrative stuff in Kirkana, and Homlin became ill on the second day of the campaign. Blagroth was already helping Homlin by then, so he just stepped into the role like it was nothing. Yeah, that sounds like him, Olmag chuckled. So, I take it the rats are hiding in their den? Ha! Comparing these cowards to the mighty beasts that roam the wastes is an insult to the rats. But yes, the drow are cowering behind their walls. Not to worry, though. I brought siege equipment, I said with a grin. Boulder tossers, which are currently being assembled, and hook ladders. Yes, I know that too. I was wondering, if you could be the first over and/or through the wall? Oh, yeah? Nope. What? Every great chief here wants to be the first. Even I want to be first. We all had a shouting match earlier, and it became apparent that nobody will be satisfied with a compromise. So, I trailed off and shrugged a little. So nobody gets to go first? Exactly. We'll all be leading from the back. But the troops are aware of the situation. If they're upset that they get to protect their chiefs, they aren't showing it. Also, if it will be of any comfort, I'm willing to explain the situation to your soldiers. Nah, if you explain it to them, I don't get to bitch to them about it. Olmag laughed. So how come we don't all go first together? 'Cause some of the great chiefs shouldn't be on the front lines at all, I replied with a malicious grin. 'Cause they haven't chosen their successors yet. Oh, Olmag deflated a little. If a great chief were to fall here without a successor, there would definitely be a civil war. Could be a war between their hopeful successors, or the other great chiefs may bring up age-old claims and start trouble. Or both, actually. I know, High Chief. Either way, it will be a blow to the unified chiefdoms. A blow which I am responsible for preventing. Yes, High Chief. He trailed off, then looked inspired. Wait, what about Blagroth? Huh? I asked, dumbfounded. Blagroth can be my successor. You said he's been doing real good, right? You can't choose your successor on the battlefield, I shouted, especially from those who may also fall in battle. Aw, come on, High Chief, he's perfect. Olmag grinned. No. You will do this the right way or not at all, gods damn it. There's traditions to uphold, feasts and such. A good successor deserves at least that much. I crossed my arms angrily. Plus, you're not the only great chief to have been lazy with choosing your successor. Fuck. Yep. So we'll all hang out in the back, safe and sound. All right, he sighed. I'll go and tell the boys. Oh wait, when are we charging? Not long now. I'll wait until you're ready to give the order for the boulder tossers to fire, though. Once the third volley is in the air, we charge. If the rocks don't make room for us in the walls, we're going to retreat and throw more. But you brought ladders, right? Yeah, but we don't want to use them if we don't have to. Numerically, we've got a fairly even fight. But if we get caught up in choke points, that can change damn quick. With how they fight, it isn't as if we would take that many losses. I don't like spending lives that we don't have to spend, Olmag, I said with a solemn shake of my head. Yeah, that's why you're the High Chief, I guess, Olmag said, then grinned again. Plus the fact that you're fucking enormous. You old fucker, I said with a laugh. Don't you got some soldiers to talk to? He laughed and walked away with a wave. I smiled and shook my head. I nodded at the guards stationed around my tent, but they ignored me, continuing their vigil as I entered. Once inside, I unbuckled my sheath and set the hefty blade down upon the planning table, which hadn't seen a lot of use. There were conflicts in the past where it had seemed like I'd been at this table for the entire duration, but this time we'd made a plan, and it had worked. The drow had been even less prepared for a counter-invasion than I had hoped. They'd fallen for every trap and tactic that we'd thrown at them, and now they were going to lose the capital. The only real hiccup we had run into so far was the thrice-damned vampires. The first few villages we took were absolutely lousy with the bastards. So much so that Makiv had wondered aloud if King Lofen had even tried to exterminate the fuckers. There had also been some skirmishes with vampire brood, deadly beasts, but no match for well-trained soldiers supported by mages, even less deadly to mages on Hanarsback. I chuckled as I imagined the enemy's first reaction to our magical cavalry. High Chief, a voice called from outside my tent. Scout Lion has a report for you. Lion, an orc from a small village who had a knack for learning new surroundings and spotting minor details. They'd done so well as a scout during the invasion of Blurpus that Great Chief Tormund had insisted that I take her under my wing. Though I was glad she made it back in one piece, a small sense of dread rose up within me as I remembered her assignment. "Enter," I said, taking a seat. The tent flap opened and an orc just over half my size and covered head to toe in cloak and hood entered. Lion removed her hood, and her long, light brown hair fell across the back of her cloak. She knelt, and that very same hair covered her face. "O highest of chiefs," she said sarcastically, "I have come to deliver unto you—" "Oh, come on," I interrupted. "Enough with the theatrics. Get up and report." "Yes, sir," she chuckled as she rose. "I take it you've got good news if you're being so playful." "Oh no, not at all," she said as her demeanor shifted. "I thought my little performance would ease the blow, as it were." The small sense of dread grew larger. "Report," I said coldly. "I found the vampires," she replied, all sense of levity gone. "They are amassing in the east." "Amassing? How many?" "At least 10,000 brood. Likely more, but I couldn't get close enough to count all of them. There's also a few dozen vampires among them." "How could you tell?" "The brood don't eat vampires," she shuddered. "That's the only meat they won't eat, it seems." She trailed off, staring at the floor. I'd seen plenty of monsters feed off of people before, and I knew how many nightmares it takes to forget such a sight. "I understand, Lion," I said softly. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "Wish I could say that I've seen worse, High Chief," she replied. "But only if that meant what I saw wasn't as bad as it was. They're ravishing the countryside and preparing to march." "Shit." "Yeah. Any hints as to where they came from?" I asked. "No, sir. It's like they just popped up from the ground or something." My thoughts turned to the reports from the invasion of Blurpus. The commander had been a half-breed drow vampire, and had the captured orcs dig out a chamber of horrors beneath the village they took. I wonder how many villages here in the Night Kingdom had a similar pit beneath them. "I need Makiv and Jakiv," I said. "Yes, sir, I thought so too. Sent a runner the moment I hit camp." "They should be here so—" "Sir, the generals are here for you," one of the guards said from outside. "Send them in," I commanded and stood, strapping my sword back on. Both Makiv and Jakiv hurried into the tent. "A vampire army," Makiv said. "Never thought I'd see the day." "It isn't outside of my expectations," I replied. "Figured there'd be a host of them somewhere. However, the size of it is concerning. 6,000 against 10,000, Jakiv added. "It'll be a close thing." "Lion, set the marker," I said. Lion moved to the table and picked up a piece of stone that was painted red. She stared at the map for a moment, then placed the stone upon it. "Very good. If there's nothing else, you're dismissed." She nodded and left the tent as the generals approached the table. I stared at the new red marker demonstrating a large enemy host to our east. Something about it. "It's fairly far, thankfully," Makiv said. "Gives us time to prepare." "Not much," Jakiv replied. "We can't turn our back on these walls, else we invite the drow's daggers." "Indeed," I agreed. "Splitting our forces in two would weaken us too much as well. So we stick to our current plan. Take the city, then fortify at the vampires." "Would Lofen surrender if we told him about this?" "No, he would never do something so smart," Makiv chuckled. "Either he wouldn't believe us and we'd have to fight anyway, or he'd betray us the first chance he got. We would also lose precious time waiting for a reply," I added, then noticed Jakiv shifting uncomfortably. "What's wrong?" "I rode here in due haste," he replied. "Didn't allow time for my Nars to be saddled. I am pained." Makiv and I nodded knowingly. Riding a Nars without a saddle is a pain that is known to most who have learned to ride. Many riding instructors consider it a rite of passage to have their pupils experience this unique type of injury. The pain is immediate, but then fades a few moments after you dismount the Nars. Then, it comes back with a vengeance, seemingly clawing at your insides and causing nausea as it goes. "I do hope someone's bringing your saddle," Makiv said with a chuckle. "Yes, but never mind me. What do we do once we take the city?" "We'll worry about the walls first and foremost. Once we're in the walls, we'll get to work plugging the holes," I explained. "It'll take the vampires a day or so to get here from all the way over there, so we can use the mages to help take the city. Once everything's settled down, we'll put the mages who know fire magic on whichever sections of wall survive our assault. Should also have archers with flaming arrows," Jakiv added. "The city should have enough pitch. I'm concerned about a potential vampiric presence within the city. Makiv said. Getting attacked from both sides of the wall would be devastating. We'll need to have patrols, assuming that we are confining the civilians until everything settles down. That's not a bad idea, but each patrol will have to have some way of permanently ending a vampire. Torches could do, but they're easily extinguished. Mages would be the best option, but each mage we send on a patrol is a mage who can't be on the wall. Damn. Wait. Infantry patrols with torches and whistles, I said. They will be supported by a rapid response force of mounted mages. That should prevent an attack on two fronts. Good plan, Makiv nodded. We'll see it done, High Chief. Gods, though, I don't like how close that army is to Bolasir. I glanced at the marker on the map and my eyebrows rose. Makiv was right. It was only about 2 days' march from the border of Bolasir. Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll march on Bolasir instead, I chuckled. King Isinarath is far better equipped to deal with them than we are. That's true, Makiv said with a laugh. I suppose I worry for nothing. Yeah, I said, something about the map still nagging at me. All right, same plan as before. Once the third volley is in the air, we charge. If there isn't a big enough hole for us, we pull back and launch another one. Makiv and Jakiv agreed and left, but I barely noticed them go. I hadn't seen it before, but the position of the vampiric host reminded me of a conversation I had with that human. The vampires were more than a day's march away from us, and at least 2 days away from Bolasir, but they were also only half a day away from the deep wild forest.